So when I say to you, thank you for setting aside everything else you could do, I really mean that. And I mean it because it has been shown to me spiritually, psychically, if you will, how it is that each and every one of us is an incredible radiating force of energy as we go out. You all know that. I mean, all day long. Look at the people here. Do you realize that every single major event in history has always been begun by one person? You ever think about that? It's really true. One person. One guy, one gal, I don't care who, somewhere, somehow, they got the idea and they decided, hey, why don't we do this? And then everybody goes, yeah, that's a good idea. And then we all went along with it. And somewhere down the line, it flowed. Think about it. Every major event it's ever occurred that we ever know about has always begun with one individual, which attests to the truth and the fact that each and every one of us is incredibly powerful and significant. And sometimes, if we don't hold that view, we can become mesmerized into this thing where we think that we don't count, or who cares what I think, or whatever. Everybody, believe me, and everybody's affected by what you think. Do you realize that if you're sensitive enough, and even sometimes if you're not even all that sensitive, you're affected by what major thought trend happens to be happening in the world at that particular time? And that's really true. So here we are. Thank you for coming. You set aside everything else you could do. Why are we here? What are we going to talk about? Well, I thought it would be a good idea to give a lecture I've given before, and I have given this before years ago. Who knows, there might be one or two here that might have attended it. And it is a lecture that only came to me, again, through spirit guidance, has to do with what have been my observations after 20-some years of counseling, of sitting there and listening to people coming to me, pouring out their heart and soul, and sharing with me their life and their path and their problems and everything else. And specifically in the area of the differences spiritually between men and women. And believe me, there are a lot of differences. There really are. There was a time back in, I guess it was the 70s or something, I used to believe in this thing called unisex. You remember that? It was kind of a fun little term someone coined. What's unisex? Well, at that time you had people like David Bowie and Mick Jagger wearing a lot of makeup, and actually looking quite feminine. And and women were wearing pants, and so they had this crossover thing going on, right? And I thought, hey, cool, we're all the same. Who cares? We're all the same. And there's some truth to that, by the way, and I think you all know that at the level of the soul. Because at the level of the soul, you might say that does it really matter if you're male or female? Not really, in the sense that the soul is a unit of consciousness that is evolving constantly, and it takes its turns incarnating as both men and women, men and women, men and women. So there's not a woman in here who has not been a man, and there's not a man in here who has not been a woman. So if you're too hung up on that, I suggest you get over it. Sorry. How would I know what it's like to be a mother? How could I pull it off? Could I? Obviously not, right? How could you ladies know what it's like to be the father of a family and have to feed 5 hungry mouths, assuming that has ever occurred, which I have a feeling it has. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the bottom line is that you had to be both a man and a woman at least once. So I really think people who are too far into their, being male or female, get over it. Really, get over it, and that's part of the lecture tonight, believe me. That's one of the underlying themes over and over again, is that society, is particularly our society, and I'm referring to 1999 so-called American, let's face it, most of us live in Hawaii, whether we were born here or not, doesn't matter, but the point is we live here now, most of us are calling this our home, and we're part of the so-called United States, so we're dealing with that culture, okay? Very adolescent. Very adolescent. And you know what? Therefore, very immature. You go to older cultures, you go to real old cultures, even the Hawaiian culture, of course, which is much older, and you get much more real values happening here. I have some very dear friends in the Hawaiian culture, and some of the men, when I greet them, one in particular, when I greet this man, he hugs me, and we rub noses and do this whole thing. Which a so-called Western man, what the hell you guys do? What, are you gay or what? I mean, they don't understand that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But you know what? I feel closer with this man than I do with the rest of these fools who try and criticize us for this. They don't know what they're talking about. They're like about 14-year-old kid making fun of me. Am I going to listen to this? I don't think so. I have better things to do. So what I'm saying is we need to get over this whole gender thing right off the top. And yet, though it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, my purpose here tonight is to share with you what I have observed to be some of the basic differences between men and women. And there are some. Call it culture, call it society, call it anything you want, but there's some very, very basic differences. And I hope, and my real goal tonight, if there's any way I can accomplish it, is to, by sharing some of these things, bring to you an idea, maybe more a different point of view, so you can, next time you're dealing with maybe a close person, a loved one, an intimate person who happens to be of the other gender, and they do something that kind of, what does that mean? You'll think about it, and you just might know. Okay, that's where we're at. That's my goal. That's what's up tonight. We're talking about some of the spiritual and psychic differences between men and women. The way tonight's lecture is going to go, as far as I know, is that we're going to go ahead and I'm going to share my observations after approximately 24, 25 years of counseling. And I began to notice this early on, by the way, the differences. So we're going to start with that. And then we're going to have a short break. You can all just kind of walk around, mill around. And then we're going to come back and hear what our spirit friends, those who are working with us from the higher dimensions, have to say about the same subject. Okay? So that's what we're up. Just so you all know, that's what you're in for. We're here till about 9 or so, approximate. Who knows? I'm not watching the clock too closely because I don't want to. I just want to flow. Okay. It was a lot of fun preparing this lecture, because I had to think all the things I've listened to. I thought it'd be a good idea. They always say, begin at the beginning. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. What are my earliest experiences of the differences between so-called men and women, or male, female? Well, believe it or not, they start very young. I was brought up in a family I was the only boy. There were older sisters, okay? So that might tell you something right there. So I was watching this stuff, right? I was watching my mom, talking to my sisters differently than she talked to me, by the way. She didn't train us the same way. And example, we'd be out somewhere in a public place, and my sisters would go, Mom, I gotta go to the bathroom. Hold it. What does that mean? When I had to go to the bathroom, go see your dad. Okay, and right away he found a way of dealing with it. It could be a bathroom, so if not, go in a bush, something. But I didn't have to hold it. And I thought, oh, my poor sisters, boy, they got to hold it. Whoa, wow. I didn't understand. I couldn't hold it. We're talking 5 minutes, okay? 5 minutes time, maybe I can hold it. That's it. You know what I mean? Little boys, hold it. I didn't know what that meant at that time. Years later, I thought back, literally years later, and I thought, and I connected, the two, and I thought, this is part of that programming that tells women, put up with it. You're inconvenienced? Sorry, honey. Hang in there, okay? The man doesn't have to do it, but you do. Oh, how come? Not even, is it? But that was happening, and I picked that up very early in life. Hold it. You want to cry? Hold it. See? There was something very interesting that happened there. Okay. I didn't fully understand it at the time, but that's what happened. Years later, now let's go teenager. Okay. Now, when I was a teenager, and you can all see I am one now, but when I was one, in those days, the way that cars and trucks and vehicles were made, there wasn't the dividing thing between the two seats all the time. Okay, now anything you get into, there's a driver's seat and there's a divider, and then there's a, right? You don't get the sliding seat anymore. Remember those? That's so nice, huh? Boy, you could sleep on that thing. And it's long seats, but no more. Right? It's not like that, right? So in those days, and therefore the girlfriend, assuming you had one, she sat right next to you. Remember that? Looked like one person. You're driving down the road, one big person, but anyway. But that was the way it was, right? Okay. So we're driving down, my girlfriend's right there. Boom, driving. Now, mind you, she's been my girlfriend for at least a year or so. So, you don't know when you're teenage, you know everybody she knows everybody you know. Right? That's the way it was. We're driving down the street. This girl goes by who I did not know, and therefore I figured she did not know. I hate her. You hate her? We don't even know her. How can you hate her if you don't know her, right? I hate her. Ring a bell? Anybody? I'm thinking, Now I'm thinking, now if I'm driving down the street and some guy goes by, I hate him. I can't imagine that, I don't know the guy, okay? Now if we hang out and he, who knows, I might end up hating him, but No. So the bottom line is I'm starting to wonder so I'm just telling you, this is my early experience as to the differences here in the gender thing. Why would she hate somebody she doesn't know, So I have to ask, why do you hate her? I know what she's doing. You do? And guess what? She did. Right? Don't women read other women pretty well? Don't they? Like in the first 30 seconds or so? Give me a little leeway. Okay? Listen, a man can sit in another room with a lot of men. He will not notice anything about the other man. Very little, other than, they say something that's going to threaten his politics or his money. That's about it. Okay? Women, on the other hand, believe me, real quick. I mean, she can be in that room like 5 minutes. You walk out, she'll tell you what every other woman that was wearing, what earrings she had on, and on and on and on. All these details that men never notice. Why would this be? Why? All of this, later, took really years to assimilate. And believe me, I don't claim to be an authority even now. But at least I know a few more things, and that's what I'm here to share with you, okay? It really happened. I mean, and I've come to, see that. Now, mind you, tonight, I hope and trust I'm not going to, I'm really trying not to lean it either toward men or toward women. Believe me, I'm really trying hard to hold the line. It's not easy, but that's my goal, okay? But the thing is, but I want to share the fact that after 20-some years, as a man who has sat listening to predominantly women, I think I've had a rather unique experience because I've gotten to hear what the women think, how they think, what they expect. And believe me, it's opened a whole other world to me. And I have a funny feeling that a lot of men have had that opportunity. So that's what I'm here to share with you tonight, okay? There was so much information, quite frankly, and I had to sit here and just conglomerate all of it. I had to take notes, but there's a few I'm going to be gazing from time to time. But here's one thing I want to tell you about. Now, most of you know what I do. I do spiritual, psychic work. I do counseling work. And again, I listen to women and so on. And one thing that I noticed early on was this. As I began to get the story of, who was who and what was what, usually boyfriend, husband, whatever, I noticed how much this lady was here and telling me, and then he does this, and he does this, and he does this, and I'm going, and you're still there? That was the big point. And you're still there? Because believe me, a man would have been gone a long time ago. Are you kidding? A woman would have done this stuff to him, day after day, week after week, year after year, and you're still there? That was the first thing I noticed. So what does that tell me? That women were willing and are willing, for the most part, to overlook and what appeared to be put up with a lot more things than men would do. We're talking basics. Now, I know I'm not going to necessarily shock too many of you because most of you are women, actually. There's a few men in here. Thank you guys for coming, sharing with me. But most of the ladies here, I'm not surprised. But the thing is that, I want to just lay it out like on a piece of paper so we can look at all this very clearly. So the bottom line was that women need to know that, and I'm sure you all know that, you're willing to put up with a way lot more than most men ever would. And I mean way louder. Ooh, it's big, Because most men, second time, third time, I'm out of here. I am out of here. But no, the women do that. Why? I had to look into this. Mind you, spiritually and psychically, I've asked for a lot of guidance on this. What have I gotten? It has everything to do with motherhood. That's really it. Women are mothers. Even if you're not a mother, you're a mother. You really are. I don't care if you've ever had a baby that's ever passed through your womb. It doesn't matter. You're a mother. You are a mother if you're a woman. And what I've seen is that God, I believe, has placed this wonderful, beautiful thing, what can I call it, in the woman's heart that makes her so forgiving and so tolerant that she's a mother. She'll overlook stuff over and over and over again. And that's no secret to a lot of you who do it a lot. But I think this is the point where we're coming to. We're coming to the so-called New Age, right? Aquarius and all this. Well, Aquarius happens to be a mental air sign, and it's not as emotional as Pisces, the sign we're moving out of. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot more people, men and women, getting real clear and real mental and a little more objective about what they're willing to put up with and what they're not. Aquarius is a male sign. masculine. Okay? So the whole trend, like it or not, in some ways is becoming a little more masculine, but I do not mean that in the lower aspect of masculinity, like what we've been seeing. Okay, you understand that? And in some ways it's becoming more feminine. Why? Because the feminine ray is the one that has to rise, because it's been suppressed. And that's gone on since the days of Atlantis. It's nothing new, nothing new. So I think we've come to the point where, we're changing. For instance, here's an example. A question that has asked a lot in readings, women, okay, a relationship has occurred. It could be a marriage, it could be a boyfriend, girlfriend, who cares? And it finally comes to some kind of an end. Okay, it had to. The woman says, do you think we can still be friends? What a sweet question. It is. It's very sweet. It is. And it's childlike. And it's beautiful. Why don't men ask that? They don't. Do you know that? Very few men ask that question. Very few men, but women ask it a lot. Okay, we have to break up. Okay, well, it's whatever. Will we still be friends? It's very sweet. I mean that. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I mean it's very sweet. It's very childlike. Men don't usually ask the question. Why? Because they're not that interested in it, frankly. And that doesn't make us ogres. We're built different. It's a strange thing, isn't it? We are. Most men, when they're ready to leave a relationship, they leave. Do I have to tell you, ladies, you know that, right? When a man is done, he's done. And a point I want to make tonight, and I hope I really can get it across, is that nobody needs to blame anybody for being who and what they are. And that's the education I think that we need to have. We need to accept people for how they are. If someone comes from another country where it's okay to burp, and they come to your house and they burp, 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 burp the whole time, can you hold them, accountable for that? No. Where they're coming from, that's cool. That's what you do, right? In your culture, it's rude. You don't do that. But they burp. Okay? You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not trying to make men wrong. Believe me. How can I, But I do tell you one thing. I think with most men, and mind you, there's exceptions. There are, and I wouldn't doubt if probably every man here's an exception, because you guys wouldn't be here if you weren't. I mean, but I'm talking, the by and large. Okay, so for a lot of you ladies whose men are not here, just kind of keep notes of what I'm talking about. Okay, what I'm saying is, when a man is done with a relationship, honey, he's done. That means he's out of here. It's a mental thing. It's a psychological thing. And here's one of the reasons why. Because when a man is done with a relationship, he's got to gather all his marbles and get on with his life. That's what. Women are not under that same kind of compunction. Do you know that I have, in the course of my readings, I have run into women who have had their lives on hold for 20 years or more behind a relationship that ended? Do you know that? Not too many men. Not too many men. Can't afford it. We can't afford that. Why? Because the world won't let you. The world, the beliefs of the world, we call the world, they expect a so-called, you're a man, right? You're a man. Well, get up and deal with it. You get on with, do something here. A woman isn't under quite the exact same kind of pressure. You might say she has that luxury. I'm not sure it is one, but anyway, there is an element of that. But what I'm saying is, when men are done, they got to gather everything they got and go on with it. They can't sit there and hold and leave 40 of their attention units behind thinking about what didn't work out. It just doesn't work that way for us, okay? Sorry. The same way men aren't supposed to cry. I know it's artificial, I know it's unnatural, but guess what? It's still in effect. I hope until New Year's Eve, and then New Year's comes in, 2000, I'm waiting for this. Because you know what? I happen to know, I have some inside information. Someone up there is going to pull the switch. They already told me. Things are going to be different. You watch. From January 1st, 2000 on, it's going to be different. There's new rules that are going to be applying, is what I'm trying to tell you. But anyway, isn't that good? Yeah, I thought. Yeah, but anyway, just please realize that, ladies in particular, I'm speaking now to the women in particular, that, because a lot of ladies will go, okay, God, didn't that mean something to him? We were together for 5 years. Didn't that mean something to him? Yes, it did. But it did not mean the same thing it did to you. That's the deal. That's the deal. Okay, here's an example. When a woman is in a relationship, I think a lot of times, whether she consciously thinks this way or not, depends on what good a businesswoman she is, she's going to think in terms of the fact that she's making an investment in the relationship and in the man. Yeah, she is. She's investing in this dude. She knows that everything she is adding to him as a soul, as a person, as a man. She knows that. But guess what? A lot of men, I think, the investment they're making, it's in themselves. Huh? There's a difference. Big difference. Sorry. It's the way it goes. See, that's what we're here for. It's the big wake-up call. Okay? The men are investing in themselves. When a man leaves a relationship, he takes everything that has happened there, he gathers up the marbles, remember what I said earlier? And he takes it onto the next relationship. He hopes he's a better man. The whole thing's been about him in many cases. She has invested in him. He is not particularly invested in her. There's just a difference now. There's a difference in thinking. There's a difference in thinking, I think, you know? Yeah. See? It's a difference. Isn't it more casual to visit somebody than to be visited? You ever think about that? He's visiting. Got it? She's being visited. You know? I mean, I'm a man, but it means more to me when someone comes to my house and visits me. You know, what if I go and drop in on them? I'm out of there. You know? Sounds cold. Sorry. There's an element of truth in what I'm saying, just based on what I'm looking at. Now, for some ladies, even some of what I'm saying will be a hard roll to take. You're being too cold here. Yeah, I think you might be judging men a little too harshly. I don't think so. I don't think any man's going to meet me at the door. You know what, man, you're being too cold on us. I don't think so. They might say, why'd you say all that? You know. Well, I'm not giving any secrets away. But what I am saying is that there's an element of this that I think we need to look at. And we need to look at it very deeply. And women in particular need to look at it. Because they're the ones that are often left, quote, holding the bag. They're the ones that are left going, what happened? They're the ones, did I do something wrong? What did I do wrong? I thought I was doing everything right. That's the big point of contention, isn't it? He left. What happened? See? And so there's an element here of that. Now, again, in doing this, I'm not trying to make men wrong and women right, or vice versa, believe me. I'm merely sharing with you the differences that I observe, the differences in perspective and an approach to a relationship. That's what I'm trying to share. And why am I doing it? Because for whatever reason, it's my karma, or dharma, if you know the difference of those two words, to share this information mostly with women. Any men who are here, I would tend to think would probably understand what I'm saying and probably not too sharply disagree with me. It just kind of works like that. We're made different, but there's reasons for it. You know, there really are. I mean, we can go back to biological things. We can go back to DNA and all that, you know. What is it? Maybe it's the man's role to be the honeybee that goes from flower to flower to flower to flower. Maybe that's true. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm not saying there isn't that element in different men, too. But what I am saying is that, you know, I think women in particular, and here's the reason why why am I giving this lecture? Because over the years, I've kept hearing over and over and over again women saying, why is it that, I'm left with this pain or this longing or this whatever, and he just sees out there with another woman and like nothing. He doesn't seem like he feels anything. What's up with that? How can he do that? How can he leave me after 5 years or 10 years or 20 and be out there with some other woman acting like nothing ever happened? How can he do that? Because I sure can't. What's up with that? You see? And this is what I'm trying to explain. The fact that men are so different in many ways in the way we think and the way that we feel from you ladies, you know. And again, it's just a matter of like, think of us as from another country. You know, was it John Gray, the guy with the, men are from Mars, women from Venus? I have never read the book. I don't know the man, but I'm assuming I'm saying certain things that he has said. I wouldn't doubt that. I'm not trying to, break new ground. But what I am getting at is that there are some very basic differences in that way. So I think we need to look at that. And you know what? When you know that, then you cease to expect that this man is going to think or feel like you do, right? And you're not going to get so disappointed. You're going to realize he speaks another language. And you might even learn to speak a few words of his language. And maybe us men will learn to speak more words in your language. And communication is the key. And I really think that's where we're headed. Okay? I really think that's what's coming up. Okay, let me consult my notes here and see what else we're looking at. What did I not say yet? Okay. Let's do this. There's a part of women that I think, again, the sweetness of it all, call it even the naivete, I don't know, but so it's placed there by God, it's not a flaw, that tend to think that men can sustain relationships of a particular type with them, friendships, okay? Women are much more capable of being friends with men, I think, than men are with women, in this sense. Okay, I know a lady who really believes that she can just meet men, and mind you, she's young, and young men, that's important, and thinks they can just be friends, okay? No. Good luck. Sorry. Good luck. You're real lucky. Why? Because young men are not looking for friends in women. Is this new? Right? They're not. They have a lot of guy friends to be friends with who share all their own interests, who they can hang out with day and night, who they don't have to worry about, am I hurting her, much less any mood shifts, time of the month, any of that stuff. They don't worry about any of that stuff. You understand? So when they're with a woman, there's a reason for it. And it's not that they just want to be friends. She actually believes this. We're just going to be friends, she says. Okay? It doesn't work like that. You ladies know that. Come on. We need to be realistic about this kind of stuff. Especially we're talking, in the 20s. I mean, most of us are a little beyond that. But, I mean, in this case, she really believes that, It doesn't work like that. It's not that way. I think it's a matter of being realistic, with what's going on with each and every person, physically, spiritually, and so on. Men, I think, for the most part, have their priorities. I mean, don't we all? But I think that, most men, when they're with a woman, they would really like to have the fullness of that experience, whatever that would be, that relationship with a woman, marriage, girlfriend, that kind of thing. So men, I don't think, are really that available for being platonic friends. Was it about a few months ago, I remember seeing this comedy thing. Chris Rock was on TV, this interesting comic, and he talked about that, platonic friends. He talked about how women like to try and have platonic friends. He goes, men don't have those. It doesn't work like that. We normally don't. There might be one or two, but there's not many. It doesn't work really quite like that. Because, I don't know, I think a man realizes something about economy of energy. He's got to keep his energy, all his ships going a certain way. And yes, he needs a woman on board for all that. But he can't be, you don't have a lot of women friends on the side. It doesn't work somehow with us. I don't know. Call us cold-hearted, insensitive, shallow, and all those words have crossed the ship. It doesn't quite work like that. So what I'm getting at is that, I think that it's more important to be realistic than anything. Here's another thing that I think is interesting, is that men will use their psychic abilities to analyze outer things. Mechanical things, maybe, cars, finances, whatever. Women use their psychic abilities more, I think, to analyze inner things. Emotions, motives, character reading, protection, safety. There's the mother again. You see what I'm saying? So a woman is constantly analyzing inner things psychically. Men, not so much. Which has given rise to this belief or whatever that men can be a little more emotionally immature than women. And I think that's a myth myself. But it just so happens to be that a lot of women believe that. Okay? Well, I see why they do. And I think it's because men often don't have the need to go inside and analyze what's going on inside of them. They don't. They don't do that all the time. Right? They're not inclined that way. How's that? Women are. They're constantly doing it. That's why women check out other women so much. Men don't. And we already talked about that, right? They know the earrings, the whole shot. You know, women, I think, are constantly using their spirit, their psychic clairvoyant ability to analyze inner things. They're working with the inner person. I really think that's the truth. And that's why you'll have a lady who'll walk in a room and check out, everybody, and she's picking up on motives. What is she trying to do, right? Women will check that out. Men don't usually do that. A man will walk in a room, he doesn't know, number one, he probably will not notice the other men in the room to start there. But if he does, he's certainly not going to notice what they're wearing. And he really will not notice at all what they're up to, unless they're after his woman. That's the only thing he would ever notice. Really, he's not going to notice that by and large. Women they will pick up all of that and more. So again, we've got this whole thing. You see what I'm saying? Are we different creatures or what? I really think that that's important. I think we need to look at that, and realize that, now again, mind you, there's exceptions. There's many, many exceptions, incredibly so, more and more and more. That's happening. But there's just a whole different way where we go about things. Let's talk about sports just real quick, okay? Now, mind you, right off the bat, I am not a big sports fan, so I'm not going to go into, the Yankees and who just won and all this kind of stuff, okay? You want to answer that? Okay. Well, anyway, here's an interesting thing. This is very recent observation. Okay, now, as you know, more and more women are getting into sports. That means not just watching sports on TV, but participating. This is very common, okay? But one thing I've noticed, even in here, we're different, okay? Because when a woman wants to participate in sports, like as in a team, you know what she'll often check out? Is the other women on the team. She's going to check them out heavy. If she doesn't like them, she may either drop out or never join to begin with. That's an important thing. You think men check that out? They're interested in the sport, possibly in the team, maybe it's reputation, and more than anything, in their own ability to perform. That's really where they're coming from. How good am I going to get at doing this thing? But women are going to check out the other women primarily. It doesn't even matter that much how she does or doesn't do or how they're doing. It's more what's going on, the inner dynamic between them. That's really what we're looking at, you see? So, where does all this take us? Where does all this leave us? What is it all showing? What's the point in pointing all these things out? Only this, that I really believe that as we start to understand these things, we can accept, number one, that the differences that exist between us all, but more than that, we can start to understand, that whatever our tendencies are, they're okay. Whatever the opposite gender's tendencies are, they're okay. We don't hold it against them. We don't expect from the opposite gender what they're not really prepared to give. We accept that you get certain things from women, certain things from men, and that's really okay and really cool, and that's all right. But by and large, you're not trying to change anybody, which is another thing that we come into. And I'm afraid, again, a lot of ladies, I think, will think that they can change their man. I don't think so. Not too likely. Maybe a little bit. He might improve their table manners a little bit, That's the fork to use with a salad. Okay, he'll pick that up. Okay. But to believe that you're really going to change him, you're fooling yourself, It's better to start from the get-go. Right from the very, very beginning, when you're first getting involved, when you're first meeting someone, that's the point right there. That's the point of magic. That's the point of power. That's the point where you start noticing how it is that this man is, listening to you, if he is at all, how you're communicating backwards and forwards. You see, there's an element of all of that. So there's a lot of dynamics that I think we need to notice early on in the relationship. That, I think, would be the point of real contact. That would really, really be the place where you start looking at people and noticing, okay, here's the point where we're going to find out if we're going to get on or not. Is he my kind of man? Well, you should know that early. Because the thought, well, he's got this and this, but I guess I can change that. I don't think so. That's not the way it's going to be. Not at all. Okay, let me check my notes again, because I know I've covered a few things, but there's so many more. This is one. This may not be a real popular topic to bring up, but I got to do it. The term, I love you. What do men mean when they say that? What do women mean? Polarity. Polarity. Why? A lot of reasons. Well, Usually, I think when a woman says, I love you, she's thought it over, Women, I don't think, say it that lightly, do they? Do most of you say that to, your men really quick? No. That's something you wait, right? Because, it's got to get in your bones, right? Is how the Chinese say it. You got to feel it in the bones, and that's when you're going to say it. So by the time a woman says, I love you, she means it. Us guys, on the other hand, well, there's different circumstances under which a man will say that, okay? I just want to outline them. Present company excluded. I'm sure every man here is a sterling knight in shining armor. Let's talk about the guys who aren't here, okay? Okay. When men say, I love you, there's a lot of reasons they could be saying it, okay? For one thing, let's go here. A lot of men completely believe that they will never understand women. They really do. They just believe that. Women are inscrutable. You cannot understand these creatures, so you just say what they want to hear. She wants to hear I love you? Okay, I love you. Can we get on with it now? Is that what it took? Is that the password? I love you. I'll say it again. How do I want to say it? Fast or slow? I love you, right? Okay. I don't think women say it very lightly. I think men can. I'm not saying do. They can. Okay. A man can say it for a lot of reasons. One reason is maybe the incredible love this woman is pouring on this guy. He's never felt anything like this. He's overwhelmed. He's never felt so loved. God, jeez, boy, so much love here. Sheesh, is this it? Is this what it all means? I guess I love you. And he blurts it out. That's what she wanted to hear. Or maybe he thinks, like I just said, that's what she wants to hear. So he will say it. Not out of deception. Like, what's the language here? Like you're trying to communicate with someone. They speak Italian. You don't, and he'll say it. Because it's something that she's going to understand, right? That's her language, isn't it? So he will say it, you see? But you understand, ladies? Get the picture? He's not necessarily coming from where you're coming from, okay? There's a lot of reasons why he might say that, okay? Another one is this, that in truth, he may be feeling complete and total love for her. Yes, indeed. I'm not saying men are incapable of love, obviously not. I mean, I think we can love as deeply as women, but then there's this. Then there's I like to call it the theory of the thimble and the cup. And it means this, that what if she can feel a lot more love than he can? What if she's just more capable of it? So when she says, I love you, and she, says it after a while, she's talking the cup. And when he says it, he's talking the thimble. No, real. You know what I'm saying? He says it and he means it. I mean, hey, I love you. I do. But that doesn't mean, and when she says I love you, it does mean all those things. When she says I love you, boy, she's better sell herself down the river lots of times. Because I love you is the ultimate. I love you means I'm here. I'm totally here. I'm totally with you, for you, eternity. You know what I mean? There's a difference, that's all. Again, I'm not trying to make men the bad guys. I am saying that I think in our culture, unfortunately, male-dominated and male-controlled, that there has been a trend that men, I think, our priorities have been enlisted to us and given to us. What does a man have to do, right? Well, one of them does not mean being a deep, sincere, spiritual, sensitive being. That is not what he has been told he has to be. If you are that, congratulations. God bless you. You've done it. We've crossed the line. But I think that women by nature tend to be along those lines. So you see what I'm saying? There's a difference there. And the only reason I bring this up is because, again, in readings I've heard it. But he said he loved me every night. Because it's not in woman's nature normally to be insincere. Not that it's in man's, but men are ruled by different principles and pulls and all this. So, again, right, it's called expediency, situation ethics, right? If it's a thing to do, you do. But a woman, she's less likely to do it no matter what the situation, if she doesn't mean it. Them are heavy words, aren't they? I love you. she's not going to say that too lightly. You know, it's just a little different there, that's all. So, again, you understand, there's these differences. And to be very honest, and you men who are in the audience, please forgive me, but what I'm really saying is, I'm speaking to some degree, and I have to, for the defense of women. Because it's the women I've heard, and they're the ones that I keep hearing over and over again that seem to be getting hurt, and it's through their own sincerity, and their own heart, and their own naivete. In some ways. I know I use that word naivete, and I don't mean that like in an insulting way, believe me. I mean it in the most beautiful way. There was the way I'd speak of a child in front of me. Naive, yes, beautifully naive. How beautiful to be that naive, you see. It's sweet. It's the way of spirit. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, that's why. Because I've heard way too much of the men being the bad guys, you know. Believe me, there was a time I was going, geez, you know, boy, you know, how can I justify this, you know. I felt funny, after a while, because I hear all these things. Because, you know why? Because, again, it's the women were putting up with things men never would. I have to give you a very extreme case. Sad but true. Beautiful, beautiful Hawaiian girl from Waianae came to see. I'll never forget her as long as I live. She came, and I mean it. By the end of the reading, I was almost in tears. I am not kidding you. This is what happened. She came and said, Mr. Pacheco, I'm here because I think I'm ready for divorce my husband. And I'm like, oh, I'm right off the bat, I'm going, good. Only because I think by the time a woman's ready to divorce, believe me, you know what I mean? Women don't fly the coop that easy. So, I mean, when she said that, I'm thinking, okay, she's got reasons. She's got to have reasons. Okay, so I'm listening to her. I'm hearing her out. He starts not coming home years back. Then he starts leaving papers around with another woman's name and number so she can find it. Then she starts finding articles of clothing. I won't go into what kind. Then he tells her he's got this girl who he works with that he's got to bring home after work because they work late. Can she please make some food for them? She does it. This keeps up. Yeah, they start going, on and on. And they got to leave after dinner because more work. Huh? Then, and this is it, this got me. Hon, we're going away for the weekend. Can we leave you the clothes? You clean you get some laundry. Huh? Now he's asking her to do their laundry. And this poor thing looks at me and she goes, I said, what did you do? She goes, I did the laundry. I'm about ready to burst into tears at this point. Right now I can sit and it's almost semi-funny, but you understand? I was ready to just burst out crying. I looked at her and she's looking at me with the most sincere eyes. She goes, I finally got it. And I was like, I had to look away. I was just ready to cry. This poor thing. And yet all you could see in her face was not stupidity. It was sincerity and a huge heart. I could never call her, oh, you stupid. What? She was believing everything. There she was. Was that a revelation of the woman's heart or what to me? You understand that? For just a little minute, I thought, ooh, if I could just talk to this guy, boy, what I would say to him. More like what I would do to him. I realized, stop, art, control. It's not your trip. It's not your kuleana. You're not here to be avenger, to bring down, on these kind of people. But the bottom line was, I hope you're all getting what I'm saying here. The point is, differences. You think a man would do that? Do you think a man would sit there and have his wife tell him that, number one, she's staying out late for work, and then on and on and on, hon, would you please make dinner for us? And now could you do our laundry? Do you really think that? You know that. Come on. See? So that's what I mean. Talk about extreme cases. We had an extreme case here. So anyway, that happened. So when it comes to this, I've come to realize these things, and what I've come to see is that we're coming to a new time, aren't we? We're coming to a new cycle, and I think women are just starting to see things real differently, that's all. They're starting to see a whole different thing. And the beautiful part about it is I see that men are also starting to grow in consciousness and starting to see a lot of things the way women see them. Do you realize that what we're sharing here tonight, this is going out like on the airwaves? Beyond the fact that we're being recorded by Olelo TV, and I believe we're going to be broadcasting on television. So thousands of people are going to hear this, I hope. That was the point. Okay. No, that really is true. But you understand that it's something that we take into account. It's Just because one can do something is not a reason that one should do it. That's the difference. There's a lot there. Okay. Now, let's see. There's one more thing. Well, there's a couple of things, but I'm going to just give one or two. And there's another thing. The original text of the lecture was the differences spiritually and psychically between men and women. Another one is this. Do you realize, men are more visual for one thing, I believe. Visual, what does that mean? That what they see physically affects their consciousness and everything else more than women, okay? I remember going back, my young man days. I occasionally, and have more than once, I'd see this very beautiful woman with what I consider not a real attractive guy. What is she seeing in him? You know what I'm saying? You all know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you men really know what I'm talking about. This beautiful girl, and she's with, there's no point in going into descriptions, but the point is some guy who I didn't consider the catch of the day. Why? Why? I just really need to know this, especially if you were without a woman. You really want to know, You're a fairly good-looking guy, what's up with this? What is up with this, Yeah, what does he have, that's got you, I got to know. See, never found out totally. I guesses, though. But it goes to show, because women aren't always coming from the eyes, are they? No. They're coming from something deeper. Call it a heart, call it a soul, call it whatever you want. They're coming from another space, You know, okay, and I'd see this. I wouldn't see too many cases the other way around. You know what I mean? Or very whatever, you might want to say, okay? I know those are kind of weird, classifications, but I think you know what I'm talking about, okay? I think we're trying to be realistic here, okay? Why? Because it's all here, isn't it? It's visual. That's another reason why with men, there just might be a little more truth to the saying, out of sight, out of mind. And with women, it might be, absence makes the heart grow fonder. All right, you ever heard those two sayings? They're kind of opposite, aren't they? I think a woman can sustain, but again, I'm not blaming men for this. I'm not. We're made that way for a reason. And you can call it, going back to caveman times, call it whatever you want. But what I'm trying to promote, and maybe I'm not doing a real good job of it as I'm sitting here wondering. I was trying to guess how these guys are going to beat me up. That was real nice, Art. Great. You really fixed my relationship. Sorry. All I got to say is that, no, I really think there's reasons why we are the way we are, okay? But I'm just saying, ladies, you got to just accept that and understand it and realize that and don't expect too much more from us. I mean, realistically, you understand? But I really believe that, men are the way they are for very basic, deep reasons. And I really think that up till now, it has not come under scrutiny. That's what I'm getting at. And now that we're sitting here openly exposing it all, and again, not to make anybody right or wrong, I really think it's important that we start to look at all this and start to accept that. Again, it's like if we're from different countries. We have different ways, and it's okay, And there comes a point where you start to almost appreciate the way the person is, and you can work with it. And I know you a lot of ladies know about that, right? You already know a lot of what I'm talking about. Going, I'm on the trail. You need to be. That's the point. You need to be catching all of this and dealing with it and using it to your advantage versus sitting home somewhere pining over some guy who left you 20 years ago. And I see it. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Because men, what's the old saying? Boys will be boys? I guess so. Sorry. But you like it, don't you? Because there's a part of you that really likes that thing about men that doesn't change, isn't it? We're not boring usually. Anyway. Okay, moving on to more interesting things. One more thing. I keep saying one more thing and I go on, okay? Okay, now let's talk about some rather sensitive issues here. Let's talk about intimacy. Intimacy. You know what I mean by intimacy? Physical intimacy I'm referring to, obviously. Okay, when intimacy occurs between a man and a woman, at that point, that man enters her inner world. He is now part of the inner furniture. Not so for the man, necessarily. Ladies, please get that clear. Please understand that. Please understand that, okay? Because it's so basic, it's so deep, it's anatomical to begin with. But beyond that, when there's intimacy, okay, he's entered your world, you have not necessarily entered his. Just accept it. You go to Las Vegas, you don't usually win. Accept it. Okay? Go. Have a good time, but know what you're getting into. Come on, let's be adults around here. You know what I mean? You got to be up with it, you know? It's just the way it goes. Sorry. You know, it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is, you know? And I think we're getting that. That's Aquarius. That's that mental, not emotional. Okay, 2 and 2 is 4. I'm dying to make it 5, but it isn't. It's 4. Okay? That's really the point. That's the point I'm trying to make. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm trying to, in some ways, maybe in my own weird way, explain men to women. I mean, in some way, and say we're not going to change. You know, we're open, we're loving. You gotta. But it's almost like women, you who have apparently the greater understanding in some ways, because that's the way it seems to be. You know, I didn't make it that way. None of us made it that way, but that's the way it seems to be. So you need to understand this. Therefore, you don't get so disappointed. Because I'm tired of sitting in my reading room and hearing all these broken hearts of all these poor women, you know? Okay? Enough already. That's all. I'm saying, and maybe by sharing some of these things, you won't put yourselves in those positions where a man's just being a man, the way that, you know, we are, and the way that he's programmed to be, and not feel let down. Okay? If anything I'm saying tonight is going to alleviate something and a little pain and maybe stop one broken heart, it's worth it to me. You know, that's all. That's really what I'm talking about. Okay, I think I've covered most of it, but I will go on to one last thing. This might be a biggie. There's a couple of them here, actually. Now this one is one that, and I don't know why, but I think I've heard this somewhere. Maybe this is the John Gray thing. Just real quick, I'll throw it in for those of you who maybe one or two haven't heard it. It might be worth it. Okay. By the way, when men are confronted with problems or situations, we generally need to be alone and think it through. You all know that, right? Women know that. Okay. Because women like to talk about it, right? They call up the girlfriend. They call up this. They call up that. You know what? Leave us alone. Just give us a little time. We'll talk when we're ready. But the point is, you know, why aren't you sharing? You're shutting me out. Okay, yeah. And I wish you'd shut up. It's not that I don't love you. It's just that I, you know, as a man, there's something in me that says in my DNA, I got to do everything I can do right here, right here, right here. And when I've hit the end of my limit, then I'll go reaching out to somebody. I'll pick up the phone. I'll call somebody. I might call a doctor. I might call somebody. But until then, I need to just have that space. See? And I know some ladies don't know that, and so they, you know, they get angry and upset and hurt because the man's not sharing everything, you know. And he won't. He can't. He doesn't want to. Okay, so there's an element to that. That's really quite true. Okay, another one is this. And now this may sound very egotistical, but I do believe there's some truth to it. And again, I'm not claiming to say this is coming from God or where, but I just believe there's some truth to this. I do believe that men are programmed to basically think of themselves as the center of their own universe. Okay? A woman adds to my universe, but she is not my universe. Got it? With women, it's not always that way. Call it programming, call it anything you want. Your mama, I don't care. But I do believe that women will often be looking for a man to make him the center of their universe. That's a biggie. That's a biggie. Because what does that mean? That whatever happens with him, that happens to you. You're not in control of the ship. He is. Now, if you can live with that, that's okay. Mind you, I'm not putting any right or wrongs on any of this. I'm just trying to define and explain and categorize a little bit, okay? That's really true. That's the whole thing about when a man leaves, he takes everything with him. Boom, he's out of here. That's why he's out of here. But with a woman, he took from me. He ripped me off. You took the best years of my life, right? You ever heard that saying? Okay, you know. He doesn't say that to her because she didn't, did she? He was quite happy where he was till he decided to move. And then he moved. See? Big difference there, okay? So that's another thing. So ladies, I mean, knowing that, then I say in any relationship you're with a man, realize that, and therefore, act accordingly, right? You see what I'm saying? That you need to hold back something for yourself. Your world has got to be as important as his. Because if it isn't, then you're giving everything to him. And can you blame him if he decides to get up and leave? He's free to do that, right? Can you really blame him and call him a cheat or a stealer or anything else? No. He just had to do that. This is the way it went. Okay. So anyway, that's important. And again, it is because sometimes, I guess, as simple as that might sound and basic to some people, they may not really quite get that. Okay, now, the very last thing, and this really is it that I'm going to cover, is this: givers and takers. Anymore, I think of everybody as being one or the other. Giver, taker. You know who you are. Okay, well, by nature of what I've just said, then wouldn't it follow that if a man is just being himself, trying to get by, doing the best he can. This responsibility, by the way, is drilled into us from very young. You ladies may not know that, but we're, in subtle ways and subliminal ways, we're programmed that, you better do something, son. You better make something of yourself, son. You better, do something because otherwise you're a loser. And see, women aren't called losers as often as men are. Think about that. They're not, usually. But women might call themselves losers, especially if he leaves or something. But, the men are the ones that call the losers. Why? Because he's the one that's supposed to leave, is going to gain or do this thing, whatever this thing is. So the bottom line is that, men are not necessarily just on the take, but they have to be a little more shrewd about what they can get going for themselves. I mean, that's a pressure that is on them that is perhaps not the same way on women, I think. A little different, a little different. So, therefore, and the thing about him being the center of her world, put all those things together. Let's put it all together now, because we're coming down to the end of our little discourse here. And what we're going to get is this, that women need to watch out for the fact that a man, if he's a so-called taker, he's kind of just following along a certain line that he's been programmed in. She needs to be the one to know when to say, enough already, stop. She's got to be the one to do that. See? And that's it. Okay? So that's really what we're looking at here. Okay? So, in sharing some of these things, as you know, as my guides have said, we are all multidimensional beings. And therefore, we're all having multidimensional experiences, including this lecture. So, obviously, in sharing with you what I'm sharing, I'm speaking to you, having a conversation of sorts, a monologue maybe. And I'm also talking to different parts of your being. I'm not just talking to your conscious mind, I'm talking to your subconscious. Our superconscious minds are also in one big brain pool, as it were. And we're sharing information. And that information, hopefully, we can take, assimilate, and will help us understand better our own, shall I say, gender and our gender tendencies, but also that of the opposite one, right? So that we don't feel that we're being taken advantage of or being misunderstood, but that we take greater responsibility for understanding ourselves and the other person. You see, I think it makes for harmony and some kind of understanding and hopefully better relationships between all of us. Okay, that's the goal anyway. So that's the point of sharing here tonight. So anyway, I want to thank you for joining me.